Welcome to Creepytalks, where hidden fears come alive through chilling horror tales. Dare to listen as every story pulls you deeper into the darkness. Story 1: The Woman in My Mother's Room. I was 12 when my mother died. The house on Cedar Hill had always been too big for just 3 people: my mother, my father, and me. But after the funeral, it felt cavernous. Every hallway carried echoes. Every door seemed slightly ajar. My father stopped sleeping in their bedroom and moved into the guest room downstairs, claiming he couldn't bear the memories. I tried to be strong. Everyone told me I was brave for my age. What they didn't know was that every night I could still smell my mother's jasmine perfume drifting through the upstairs hallway long after her clothes had been packed away. And sometimes at 3:07 a.m., I heard footsteps in her room. At first, I convinced myself it was the house settling. Cedar Hill was old, built in 1912. Its beams groaned like something alive. But these weren't groans. They were soft, deliberate steps, slow, measured, like someone pacing. The first time I opened my bedroom door to check, the hallway was empty. My mother's bedroom door stood closed at the end of the corridor. I remember staring at it for a long time, my heart drumming in my ears. The handle turned, just slightly. I didn't breathe. I didn't move. The handle stopped halfway, then slowly twisted back into place. The next morning, I asked my father if he'd gone upstairs during the night. He looked at me strangely. "I haven't been up there since." His voice cracked. He didn't finish. 3 months later, he met her. Her name was Evelyn. She appeared in our lives quietly, first as a colleague from his office, then as a dinner guest, and suddenly as someone who laughed at his jokes in a way my mother never had. She wore dark dresses and long silver earrings that clinked faintly when she moved. Her hair was always perfectly straight, parted like a sharp line dividing her face into 2 symmetrical halves. The first time she looked at me, I felt something cold crawl down my spine. Not because she was rude, because she smiled too long. "Such a sweet boy," she said, her fingers brushing my cheek. Her hand was ice cold despite the summer heat. "You have your mother's eyes." The way she said mother felt wrong, like she was tasting the word. I didn't like her, but my father looked lighter when she was around, less broken. 6 months later, they were married in a small ceremony. I stood beside him in a stiff gray suit while Evelyn wore black instead of white. "It's elegant," she explained when relatives whispered. "Traditional is boring." She moved into my mother's bedroom that same night. That was when the house changed. The jasmine scent disappeared. The footsteps at 3:07 a.m. stopped. For a while, it started with small things. My mother's jewelry box, which I had hidden in the back of my closet, went missing. I tore my room apart searching for it. Evelyn stood in the doorway watching me. "Lose something?" she asked sweetly. "My mom's jewelry box." Her lips curved. "Maybe you're imagining things." "I'm not." She tilted her head slightly. "Memory can be unreliable, especially for children who've experienced trauma." The word trauma felt like a slap. That night, the footsteps returned, but this time they weren't coming from her bedroom. They were coming from inside my walls, scratching, slow dragging sounds like nails against wood. I pressed my ear to the wall and heard something else. Breathing, soft, labored, wet. The next morning, I checked the attic hatch in the hallway ceiling. It was slightly open. My father swore he hadn't touched it. Evelyn claimed she was afraid of attics. "I hate cramped spaces," she said, shuddering theatrically. But that night, I saw her standing on a chair beneath the hatch at 3:05 a.m., her silhouette illuminated by the hallway nightlight. She wasn't climbing up. She was whispering into it. I couldn't hear the words clearly, but I caught fragments. Not yet. He suspects. Soon. I stepped on a loose floorboard, and it creaked. Her head snapped toward me with inhuman speed. For a moment the hallway light flickered, and I swear her eyes reflected it like an animal's. "Go back to bed," she said calmly. Her voice wasn't whispering anymore. It was commanding. Things escalated after that. My grades began to slip. I couldn't sleep. Every night the scratching grew louder. Sometimes it sounded like something crawling inside the walls above my bed. One evening at dinner, I asked my father directly, "Have you noticed anything weird?" He looked confused. "What do you mean?" "Like noises. At night." Evelyn set her fork down gently. The clink of metal against porcelain echoed unnaturally loud. "You've been having nightmares," she said before my father could respond. "He came to me about it." I stared at her. I had never gone to her about anything. My father frowned. "You didn't tell me it was getting worse." "You wake up screaming," Evelyn continued softly. "You wander the halls. You don't remember." My mouth went dry. "I don't do that." My father looked worried now. "Son, last week you were standing outside our door at 3 a.m, just staring." "That's not true." But doubt crept in. What if I didn't remember? What if the noises were dreams? That night I locked my bedroom door and set my phone to record. At exactly 3:07 a.m., I woke up, not from a sound, from stillness. The scratching had stopped. I couldn't move. My body felt pinned to the mattress. Sleep paralysis, I would later learn, but at that moment it felt like something was sitting on my chest. Then I saw her. Evelyn stood in the corner of my room, barely visible in the darkness. She wasn't facing me. She was facing the wall, whispering. The wall bulged slightly, like something pressing outward from inside. A shape pushed against the paint, a hand-shaped impression from within the wall. My lungs burned as I struggled to breathe. Evelyn slowly turned her head toward me, though her body remained facing the wall. Her neck seemed to twist too far. "You shouldn't spy," she said softly. The wall hand began to claw. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. Then everything went black. I woke up in the hospital. My father sat beside me, looking exhausted. "They said you fainted," he explained. "Dehydration? Stress?" "Where's Evelyn?" "At home." I grabbed his arm. "Dad, she was in my room." His expression hardened slightly. "She told me you've been under a lot of pressure. That grief can cause hallucinations." "She's lying." He looked torn. "Son, when I came into your room, you were alone." "But, and the wall?" he continued gently. "There's nothing inside the walls?" I didn't argue further, but when I got home 2 days later, I went straight to my room. The corner where the wall had bulged was smooth, freshly painted. The paint was still slightly tacky, and on my pillow lay my mother's jewelry box, open, empty. Inside the lid, carved into the velvet lining, were 3 words. "He belongs to us." That was the moment I knew 2 things with absolute certainty. Evelyn wasn't just evil, and whatever lived inside the walls wasn't finished with me yet. Story 2. The Things Behind the Walls. After the hospital, my father treated me like glass. He checked my temperature twice a day. He insisted I keep my bedroom door open at night. He even suggested therapy. Evelyn supported every idea with concerned nods and sympathetic smiles. But when we were alone, her expression changed. Not angry, not even threatening, amused, like she was watching a performance she had already memorized the ending to. 3 nights after I returned home, I stayed awake on purpose. I didn't trust sleep anymore. I kept my lamp off and pretended to breathe deeply in case she came to check on me. My phone lay beside my pillow recording again. At 3:06 a.m., the house temperature dropped. I know it sounds dramatic, but I felt it physically, like someone had opened a freezer door in my room. My breath fogged faintly in the darkness. Then came the sound. Not scratching this time. Knocking from inside the wall. 3 slow taps. Pause. 3 more. Like a signal. I didn't move. The knocking traveled. It moved along the wall behind my bed, down toward the floor, then up again toward the ceiling. Something was crawling inside the hollow spaces between the beams. Something heavy. Then I heard her voice in the hallway, soft, murmuring, chanting. The attic hatch creaked open. My door, though locked, began to rattle gently, as if someone were testing the handle without touching it. The knocking stopped. Silence. Then, a whisper from directly behind my head. "He sees us now." I bolted upright and slammed my back against the wall. Nothing. No one. But the wall felt warm, alive. The next morning I checked the recording. For the first few hours it was just silence and my breathing. At exactly 3:07 a.m., static flooded the audio. Then the knocking, clear, distinct, 3 taps. Pause, 3 taps. Then a second voice layered under the static. Not Evelyn's, not human. It sounded wet, thick, like someone speaking with a mouthful of water. "Open?" I replayed it over and over, my hands shaking. This wasn't sleep paralysis. This wasn't grief hallucination. This was proof. I decided to show my father, but when I pressed play for him at breakfast, the audio was clean. No static, no knocking, just silence. I stared at the screen in disbelief. "That's impossible," I whispered. Evelyn rested her hand on my father's shoulder. "You see," she said gently, "he's convincing himself of things." I wanted to scream. Instead, I watched her, and I noticed something new. The silver earrings she always wore, long thin rods, were carved with tiny symbols. The same symbols I had seen scratched faintly into the inside of the attic hatch. That afternoon, while my Faye was at work and Evelyn claimed she was resting, I pulled down the attic ladder. Dust poured down like ash. The attic smelled wrong, not like old wood or insulation, like rot, thick, sweet, decaying. I climbed up with a flashlight. The beam cut through floating particles and landed on something hanging from a rafter. My mother's dress. The blue one she wore the last Christmas before she died. It swayed gently even though there was no breeze. I stepped closer. There were dark stains on the fabric. Not wine, not dirt. Something darker. My chest tightened. "Looking for answers?" Her voice came from behind me. I spun around so fast I nearly fell through the hatch. Evelyn stood at the top of the ladder, smiling. "You shouldn't come up here," she said softly. "This is private." "Why is my mom's dress here?" My voice cracked. She tilted her head. "You mean your mother's shell?" My blood ran cold. "What did you say?" She stepped into the attic fully now, and the air shifted. The flashlight flickered. "You think death is the end?" She continued calmly. "You think she simply stopped?" I backed away slowly. "Stay away from me." She laughed. It wasn't loud. It was quiet, controlled. "You've always been sensitive," she said. "That's why they're interested in you." "Who?" She pointed to the beams above us. Something moved across them. Fast. Too fast to follow. A long shadow bending at impossible angles. "You hear them because you're open," she whispered. "Your father isn't. He never was." The beams creaked. Then something dropped behind me. I turned slowly. There were scratches carved into the floorboards in a circle. Inside the circle were the same symbols as her earrings. And in the center, clumps of hair, dark, long, my mother's color. "You're sick," I whispered. Evelyn's expression hardened for the first time. "You were not supposed to come up here." The attic hatch slammed shut, by itself. Darkness swallowed us. The only light came from my flickering flashlight. Then the crawling started. Not in the walls, on the ceiling. Multiple bodies skittering across the wood. Limbs scraping, breathing echoing from every direction. I aimed the flashlight upward. For a split second I saw them. Pale shapes clinging to the beams. Too thin, too long. Their arms bent backward at the elbows. And their faces, blank, no eyes, just smooth skin stretched tight. My flashlight died. Something grabbed my ankle. Ice-cold fingers dug into my skin. I screamed. The attic hatch burst open and sunlight flooded in. The grip vanished instantly. My father's voice boomed from below. "What is going on?" I scrambled down the ladder, nearly falling into him. Evelyn followed slowly, composed. "She was sleepwalking," she said calmly. I stared at her in disbelief. "She?" My father frowned. "What?" "She means me," I said quickly, not understanding why the pronoun felt so wrong but too shaken to argue it. Evelyn smiled slightly. I felt it then, the shift, something subtle but real, like a thread had just been pulled tight. That night I checked my ankle. Finger-shaped bruises circled it. 6 fingers, not 5. I didn't sleep. At 3:07 a.m., my bedroom door creaked open. I had locked it. Slow footsteps crossed the room. I kept my eyes closed, breathing steady. The footsteps stopped beside my bed. A cold hand brushed my hair back gently. "So much like her," Evelyn whispered. Then another voice spoke, right beside her. "We take him soon." My eyes flew open. Evelyn stood there, but she wasn't alone. Behind her, towering near the ceiling, was one of the pale things from the attic. Its head nearly touched the fan. It bent down slowly, its blank face inches from mine. Where its eyes should have been, the skin rippled, like something moving beneath it. Evelyn smiled down at me. "Your mother tried to stop the ritual," she said softly. "She thought love could protect you." My heart slammed against my ribs. What ritual? Her fingers pressed lightly against my forehead. The binding. The creature behind her extended one impossibly long finger and touched my chest. The air left my lungs instantly. Pain exploded through my body. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. The ceiling above my bed began to crack. Thin fractures spreading outward in a perfect circle. Symbols burned into the plaster, glowing faintly red. "You belong to us," both voices said together. And as the ceiling split open, I saw the inside of the walls. Not wood, not insulation, but layers. Endless layers of pale bodies fused together, shifting and breathing, watching, waiting. The last thing I saw before everything went black again was my father standing in the doorway, not shocked, not confused, smiling. Story 3, The Binding. When I woke up, I wasn't in my room. I wasn't even in my house. I was lying on something cold and hard, my wrists bound tightly behind my back. The air smelled damp, earthy, metallic, suffocating. My head throbbed as if something had burrowed inside it and was trying to claw its way out. It was dark, not normal darkness. This felt thick, pressing, breathing. I tried to move and felt rough stone beneath me. The sound echoed. So I wasn't in a small space. I wasn't in Cedar Hill anymore. Then I heard her voice. Good, you're awake. A single candle flared to life across the room. The flame illuminated Evelyn, standing in a long black dress, barefoot, her silver earrings glinting. The symbols on them seemed darker now, almost wet. Behind her stood my father, still smiling, but his eyes, they were empty, not blank like the creatures, empty like something had been scooped out. "Dad?" My voice cracked. He didn't respond. Evelyn stepped closer. "You're not at home," she said gently. "You're beneath it." My stomach dropped. "Beneath?" She lifted the candle higher. The walls around us weren't drywall. They were stone, carved stone. Ancient symbols spiraled from floor to ceiling, identical to the ones in the attic, the ones on her earrings, the ones burned into my bedroom ceiling, and embedded between the carvings. Bones, human bones. My breathing turned ragged. "You see," she continued softly, "Cedar Hill was built on something much older, something sacred." "Sacred to who?" I whispered. Her smile widened. "To us." The candlelight flickered violently, and then I saw them. The pale beings emerged slowly from the shadows along the walls. Dozens of them, their elongated limbs folded unnaturally as they crawled downward, clinging to stone like insects. Their blank faces turned toward me in unison, watching, judging, waiting. My father walked forward stiffly and placed a hand on my shoulder. His touch felt wrong, too cold. "You were always meant for this," Evelyn said. "Your bloodline was chosen generations ago." I shook my head violently. "No." "Yes," she whispered. "Your mother knew." My heart stopped. She discovered the truth after we married. She tried to break the binding, tried to hide you. The room seemed to tilt. "She died protecting you." My throat burned. "You killed her." Evelyn's expression didn't change. She refused to cooperate. The creatures began circling me now, their movements synchronized, forming a ring, a ritual circle. My father stepped back, standing beside Evelyn again. I looked at him desperately. "Dad, please." For a fraction of a second, something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, pain. Then it vanished. Evelyn raised both hands. The symbols carved into the walls began glowing faintly red. "You are the final vessel," she said, "the bridge between flesh and hollow." One of the creatures stepped forward. Up close, I could see beneath the thin membrane covering its face. There were shapes pressing from inside, multiple shapes, as if many faces were trapped beneath one layer of skin. Its six-fingered hand reached toward my chest. I felt heat beneath my skin, like something waking up. "You've always heard us," it whispered without a mouth moving. The voice vibrated directly inside my skull. "Because part of you is already ours." "No," I gasped. Memories flashed through my mind. 3:07 a.m. The knocking, the whispers. Had that been them? Calling me home. Evelyn began chanting in a language that twisted around itself. The creatures joined in, their bodies swaying unnaturally. The floor beneath me cracked. A circular slab of stone lowered slowly, descending into darkness. I was being taken deeper. The chamber above faded as the platform sank. The last thing I saw was Evelyn's face illuminated by red light, triumphant. The descent felt endless. When the platform stopped, I found myself in a cavern far larger than the room above, and in the center, something massive. It was fused into the cavern walls, stretching upward into darkness. A colossal body made of intertwined pale forms, writhing slowly as if breathing in unison. Thousands of them. Merged, its surface pulsed, and embedded in its center, human faces. Dozens. Some screaming silently, some frozen in terror, some rotted beyond recognition. And one, I couldn't breathe. One of them was my mother, her face half submerged in the mass, eyes closed, tears carved permanently down her stone-like cheeks. "Mom," I whispered. The mass shuddered. Her eyes opened. They were still hers, full of love, full of warning. "Run!" Her voice echoed faintly in my mind. The creatures dragged me toward the base of the entity. "This is the Hollow Mother," the whispering voice said. "She births us. She binds us. And through you, she will walk again." I struggled violently. The heat in my chest intensified. Something inside me pulsed in response to the massive entity, like a heartbeat syncing with another. "No!" I screamed. My mother's embedded face moved slightly. Pain twisted her features. "Fight it!" she cried inside my mind. The creatures pressed their six-fingered hands against my chest. Symbols ignited across my skin, burning through fabric. I screamed as something tried to tear its way out from within me. Evelyn's voice echoed from above, amplified unnaturally. "Complete the binding." The cavern shook. Cracks spread along the Hollow Mother's surface. Light poured from within the fractures. My vision blurred. And then, a memory surfaced. My mother holding me when I was younger, whispering something I never understood at the time. "If they come for you, remember, you are not empty." Not empty. The creature shrieked suddenly, high-pitched, agonized. The heat in my chest flared brighter than before, but it wasn't burning. It was resisting. The symbols on my skin began shifting, changing. The carvings on the cavern walls flickered erratically. "What are you doing?" Evelyn's voice screamed from above. I focused on my mother's face. "I'm not yours," I whispered. The entity convulsed violently. Cracks split through the fused bodies. Screams filled the cavern, not from one throat but thousands. The creatures gripping me recoiled as if burned. Light exploded outward from my chest, blinding, deafening. The Hollow Mother shrieked, a sound so deep it felt like the earth itself tearing apart. The platform shot upward violently. The cavern collapsed beneath me. Stone crumbled. Bodies disintegrated into ash. I heard Evelyn screaming in rage as I burst back into the chamber above. The walls cracked. The bones embedded in them shattered. The creatures fell from the ceiling, writhing as their forms dissolved. Evelyn lunged toward me, her face no longer calm, twisted, furious, inhuman. "You were promised!" she screamed. I didn't know what I was doing, but I raised my hand instinctively, and the same light that had erupted from my chest surged outward. It struck her directly. She froze mid-step. Her body began fracturing like porcelain. Cracks spiderwebbed across her skin. Her eyes widened, not in fear, in disbelief. "This isn't possible," she whispered. Then she shattered, not into flesh, into dust. My father collapsed to the ground. The red glow vanished. The symbols faded. Silence fell. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying in the ruins of our basement. Not a stone cavern, just broken concrete, collapsed support beams. Firefighters stood around me. Police lights flashed outside. They said there had been a gas explosion. They said the house was unstable for years. They said my stepmother died in the collapse. There was no body. My father survived, but he doesn't remember her, not clearly. When I mention Evelyn, he looks confused. "Are you sure you're not mixing things up?" he asked gently. Cedar Hill was demolished months later. Nothing unusual was found beneath it. No carvings, no bones, no cavern. But sometimes, at 3:07 a.m., I still wake up, and I hear knocking. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. Not from the walls, from inside my chest. And when I look in the mirror under dim light, For just a second, I swear I see something moving beneath my skin, waiting. Story 4. The Hollow Never Leaves. They told me it was trauma. They told me survivors of explosions often experience residual hallucinations. They told me memory can rewrite itself to survive, but they couldn't explain the knocking. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. Always at 3:07 a.m. Always from inside my chest. It's been 10 years since Cedar Hill collapsed. I'm 22 now. My father and I moved to a small town 3 states away. He remarried eventually. Someone normal this time. A school teacher named Marianne. Kind, soft-spoken, afraid of horror movies. Nothing like Evelyn. Nothing like the thing that wore her face. For years, the knocking grew faint. Therapy helped me function. College distracted me. I learned to laugh again. But I never told anyone the full truth. Not about the cavern, not about the hollow mother, not about my mother's face embedded in that writhing mass. Because deep down, I knew something hadn't ended. It had only paused. The first sign came last winter. I was studying late in my apartment when my chest tightened suddenly. Not pain exactly, but pressure. Like someone pressing from inside my ribs. The clock read 3:06 a.m. My stomach dropped. No, I whispered. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. Not loud, but unmistakable. I staggered into the bathroom and gripped the sink. It's not real, I told my reflection. But my reflection didn't move right away. It was delayed by half a second. Then it smiled. I didn't. The smile was subtle. Wrong. Then it matched my expression again. I stumbled backward, knocking over a lamp. When I looked back, normal. Just me. Sweaty, pale, terrified. The dreams started that same week. Not nightmares, memories. I would stand again in that cavern beneath Cedar Hill. Only this time, it wasn't collapsing. It was whole, breathing. The hollow mother no longer cracked or broken. She was larger, stronger. And where my mother's face once had been, there was only smooth, pale flesh. Empty. You freed us, the voice whispered in my dreams. But you did not destroy us. I'd wake up gasping, my chest burning with faint glowing symbols beneath the skin. They faded by morning, but I knew they were there, waiting. I finally searched for records about Cedar Hill, old newspaper archives, property deeds, historical land surveys. And that's when I found something that made my blood freeze. The house wasn't built in 1912. That was just the last renovation. The original foundation dated back to 1843, and before that, the land belonged to a religious sect that vanished without explanation. Their name appeared only once in the archives, the Order of the Hollow Bride. I felt sick. Bride. Evelyn wore black at her wedding, not white. I dug deeper. The order believed in something they called the vessel, a blood descendant chosen to open the way for their mother to cross fully into the physical world. The vessel would be marked young, sensitive, able to hear the knocking. My hands trembled over the keyboard. The articles ended abruptly in 1851. Entire families missing. No bodies found. Just abandoned homes. And in one surviving journal entry, written by a local sheriff before he disappeared, were the words, "They bind the child at the 3rd hour." 3:07 a.m. That night I called my father. "Did Mom ever mention anything about her family history?" I asked casually. He paused. "Your grandmother used to say our bloodline was special," he replied. "Old superstitions." My heart pounded. What kind of superstitions? She claimed we were keepers of something sealed. I never believed it. Sealed, not destroyed. Sealed. After we hung up, the lights in my apartment flickered. I froze. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. Louder this time. I pressed my hand against my chest. The tapping pressed back. Then the whisper returned. You cannot outrun blood. I fell to my knees. No, I whispered. The air in the apartment thickened. The walls seemed to stretch, the corners darkening unnaturally. And then I saw them again, not fully formed, just impressions. Pale limbs pressing outward beneath the dry wall, like something trying to be born. My breathing became shallow. You chose defiance, the voice murmured. So we choose patience. The ceiling cracked slightly, not breaking, just fracturing in a perfect circle. Symbols faintly etched themselves into the paint. The same ones. The binding never completed. It only paused. Because I survived. Because I resisted. But resisting isn't the same as ending. The next morning, everything looked normal. No cracks, no symbols, no impressions in the walls. I almost convinced myself it had been a panic attack, until I checked my chest. 6 faint bruises circled my sternum. 6 fingerprints. From the inside. I went back to Cedar Hill's old lot 2 weeks later. It's empty now. Just weeds and a chain-link fence. But the ground feels wrong there. Heavy. I stood at the center of where the house used to be, and at exactly 3:07 p.m., broad daylight, I felt it. A pulse beneath my feet, like a heartbeat deep underground. Then I heard it, not from my chest this time, from below the soil. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. I staggered back. The dirt shifted slightly, just enough to know something moved beneath it. I understood then. The Hollow Mother was never confined to the cavern. The cavern was just an anchor, a doorway. And I'm the key. 2 nights ago, I had the clearest dream yet. I stood in a vast dark space. No walls, no ceiling, just endless pale bodies forming a horizon. And in the center stood my mother. Not embedded, not trapped. Free, but different. Her eyes were black, empty. You cannot keep fighting forever, she said softly. Mom, I whispered, her head tilted unnaturally. You were born open. Behind her, the Hollow Mother rose like a continent of flesh. You can hold us back, the whispering chorus said, but every vessel cracks. I woke up screaming. The clock read 3:07 a.m. My reflection in the dark window wasn't screaming. It was smiling again. And this time, it didn't stop. I don't know how much longer I can resist. The knocking is stronger every night. The symbols burn brighter beneath my skin. Sometimes when I pass mirrors, I see pale shapes standing just behind me. Waiting, watching, patient. If you're reading this, if you've ever heard knocking at 3:07 a.m., if you've ever felt something moving beneath your ribs, check your bloodline. Ask about old promises, about sealed things, because the Order of the Hollow Bride didn't disappear. They adapted. They married into families. They spread quietly. And somewhere, right now, another child is hearing the first 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. The binding always finishes. Eventually. And if I stop answering messages, if my reflection finally stops copying me, if the knocking suddenly goes silent, it won't mean it's over. It will mean the door's open.